Welcome to the Laverne Church of the Brethren's weekly audio message. Here at the Laverne Church of the Brethren, we create a Christian community called by Christ to be inclusive, caring, and peace-minded. We affirm that people of any race, ethnic identity, gender identity, sexual orientation, ability, age, economic status, faith tradition, or life situation are welcome in our congregation. We believe in compassionate service, stewardship of creation, respect for diversity, and nonviolent reconciliation for differences among all people, nations, and faith traditions. We claim no creed but the New Testament as exemplified by the life of Christ. We strive to follow the way of Jesus. And through these efforts, we seek to grow ever closer to the mind and heart of God. And now let us ground ourselves as we enter into today's message.
We're going to talk about deconstructionism this morning, and I'm just waiting for when we see that in motion here in front of me. You know, one of the great things about being fortunate enough to be on a pastoral staff and worship team is that you get to share in the excitement of discussing ideas and possibilities. And from these conversations came the idea of a worship service that is built around an article that appeared in the June 2023 issue of the Christian Century magazine. The article was written by a professor of American Christianity, Peter Choi, who teaches at the Graduate Theological Union in Berkeley, California. The article was titled, Deconstructed, Reimagined Faith, 5 Ways I See a New Generation Reorienting Its Christianity. Deconstructionism is generally associated with the Algerian-French philosopher Jacques Derrida. He was born in 1930 into a Jewish family and so lived through the rise of Hitler and the Second World War. Those experiences had shattered an optimism on the part of many theologians and philosophers about progress and its inevitability, about the nature of truth, language, texts, and human experience. For Derrida, deconstructionism was about an ongoing process of questioning and interrogating the texts and the myths that we use to create meaning and truth in our lives. He advocated pulling all of our ideas and texts apart, deconstructing them, if you will, in order to expose the ideological biases and assumptions that are always present in those texts. As an example, think of everything about, including like history, race, class, politics, economics, power, gender, nostalgia, and so much more that is packed into that single 4-word slogan, Make America Great Again. That takes a lot of unpacking. Or maybe one nation under God. Deconstructionism challenges a Western tendency to claim that there are ultimate knowable truths, including philosophical or religious truths. Instead, deconstructionists say the meaning of a text or a myth or history is never fixed or static, but is always unstable and must constantly be renegotiated, reworked, and then deconstructed again. As you might imagine, this perspective makes some people wildly uncomfortable, especially those who perhaps tend towards a religious fundamentalism or a very conservative ideology. Interestingly, and this is kind of an aside, at least to me, I think there are some things in our tradition as brethren that resonate, or at least might be slightly compatible with some of the ideas related to deconstructionism. I think, for example, of our embrace of no force in religion, our affirmation of ongoing revelation as we engage biblical texts, our wariness about formulated creeds that you must repeat and believe, and an insistence that we study the Bible together so that there is a multiplicity of perspectives and experiences that is brought to bear. Now, I would never say that the brethren are deconstructionists, but there are some facets of our inherited tradition that perhaps lend themselves to this way of thinking and critique. So Peter Chai, who wrote the article, I'm going to get that name right, Peter Chai. Now I have it mixed up in my head. Peter, who wrote the article, is not brethren. He comes out of an evangelical tradition. And there's something that is happening in evangelicalism right now. Some evangelicals, mostly younger ones, are seriously rethinking the faith that they grew up with, including some of their tradition's key beliefs and assumptions. They're asking questions like, how were these beliefs formed? What assumptions are built into them? Who constructed them? How have they operated? And what has been the impact of this inheritance? These can be deeply, deeply disorienting questions and a deeply disorienting process. Indeed, it has led some young evangelicals to jettison many tightly held beliefs and to embrace new ways of thinking that often challenge their tradition's history. Some are calling this process that is happening among evangelicals faith deconstruction or deconstructing faith. Now, I'm not an American evangelical. Might surprise you. I'll even confess that I have some real struggles with it. But I applaud what is happening within this new generation of evangelicals. And I'm taken by their willingness and courage to really examine the beliefs and ideas that have been handed down to them. This movement has important implications for all of us. And so over the next 5 weeks, we are going to be considering some of the trends that some have seen happening among young Christian evangelicals, beginning this morning with a trend towards shifting from a posture of superiority to mutuality. A basic question that I sometimes ask myself is, why am I Christian? I could give all kinds of responses to that question in terms of choice and religious experience and even truth as I understand it. But I suppose that the most honest reason that I am Christian is because I was born into a Christian family, have been overwhelmingly surrounded by people who identify as Christian, and live in a nation that has been highly shaped by Christian beliefs and practices. In some ways, I almost can't not be Christian. My very brain has been molded and shaped by Christianity. Like it or not, I think I have a Christian brain. It's how I experience the world. In that kind of neurological, political, social, philosophical, theological shaping, one of the things that most of us have been taught about our Christianity is not just that it happens to be our personal faith perspective, but that Christianity is uniquely superior to all other faith perspectives. I find this deeply embedded bias to be fascinating, in part because American Christians as a whole tend not to be particularly well informed about other faith traditions. As far as I can see, our assertion about the superiority of Christianity is often just that, an assertion. If pressed, we tend to point to our own scriptures. And indeed, there are many examples there, including the passage that Amanda read, the passage that Devin read. There is salvation in no one else, for there is no other name under heaven given among mortals by which we must be saved, from Acts. But pointing to our own scriptures is really a circular and not a logical argument about superiority. Our concept of American exceptionalism has been deeply tied into our understanding of ourselves as a special Christian nation, a city on a hill that far outshines and surpasses all other cities. In her book, The American Syndrome, author Betsy Hartman writes, "The Puritans bequeathed to us the confidence and hubris that we are God's chosen people, called upon to save the world. America is at the center of the moral universe." Karl Rove, remember him, put it another way when he said, "We're an empire now, and when we act, we create our own reality." Like many unexamined ideologies of superiority and chosenness, this one has generated terrible harm to other people, to other countries, to other faiths, to our planet, to ourselves as a nation, and to us as individuals of that nation. Peter Choi sees a trend within evangelicalism of reimagining a Christian faith that engages the world not from a posture of superiority, but rather one of mutuality. That is, embracing a relational, interdependent kind of presence that does not seek power over, but power with, a faith that does not insist upon its own superiority, but is willing to entertain the idea that, as theologian John Hicks suggests, perhaps Christianity is not, after all, the one and only true or one and only salvific religion. I think about the possibilities that emerge with that kind of reimagined Christianity, and I am flooded with a sense of curiosity, excitement, and even joy. The world seems to get so much bigger, to expand, while simultaneously, almost paradoxically, becoming much more intimate and personal. There is a freedom that comes with shedding the necessity for the kind of constant vigilance that is demanded in defending and maintaining superiority. Instead, we are empowered to greet one another as friends, family, and colleagues who can journey together in a mutual search for meaning and well-being. It is a reimagining with powerful implications that I suspect has the potential to make us all just a little more human, a little more humane, a little more real, and perhaps, ironically, just a little bit closer to our own and also the world's salvation. Thanks be to God.
We're so glad that you listened to the message today. If you're looking for an open and affirming, peace-loving, and justice-seeking congregation, consider visiting us for in-person worship on Sundays at 9:30 a.m. We'd love to meet you.